My brother stole my credit card, blew 20K, and my parents took his side until the truth came out. My name is Emma Wilson, and I'm 32 years old, though some mornings I feel closer to 50. I run Sugar Maple Bakery, a little shop tucked on Patton Avenue in downtown Asheville, North Carolina. The place smells like buttery scones and fresh coffee, with a faint sweetness that clings to your clothes when you leave. There's a creaky wooden floor, a chalkboard menu I redraw every week, and a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains through the front window that makes even the worst days feel a little softer. I started the bakery 5 years ago, after years of saving every penny from waitressing jobs. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Most days, I'm up at 4 a.m., kneading dough, frosting cupcakes, and chatting with regulars who know my coffee order better than I do. My family's the kind you'd find in any American town, I guess. Loud, messy, and way too involved in each other's business. There's my mom, Linda, 60, who used to work at a bank and now spends her days gardening and calling me to complain about her roses. My dad, Tom, 62, was a car mechanic, the kind who could fix anything but never talks about his feelings. And then there's my younger brother, Ryan, 35, who's always been the golden child. He's got this charm, dark hair, quick smile, the kind of guy who can talk his way out of a parking ticket. Mom calls him her sunshine boy, which makes me want to roll my eyes so hard they fall out. Me? I'm just Emma, the practical one, the one who pays her bills on time and keeps the family from falling apart. Growing up in our little ranch-style house on Merriman Avenue, with its peeling blue paint and a backyard full of pine trees, Ryan could do no wrong. He'd skip chores, and Mom would laugh it off. I'd be scrubbing dishes, and he'd be out charming the neighbors' daughters. He always had big dreams, wanted to be a real estate mogul, drive a Tesla, live in one of those glass-walled houses you see in magazines. I used to think he'd make it, maybe because I wanted to believe in him too, but Ryan never stuck with anything. He'd start a job, quit in a month, and Mom would say, "He's just finding his path." My path was clearer. Work hard, save up, build something real. That's why I opened the bakery, even if it meant no vacations, no fancy clothes, just flour in my hair and a sore back. Asheville's a funny place, artsy, full of breweries and buskers playing banjos on street corners. It's tight-knit, but gossip travels fast, especially in families like mine. Sunday dinners at Mom and Dad's are non-negotiable, with Mom's overcooked pot roast and Dad's stories about carburetors. Ryan would show up late, flash that smile, and Mom would melt. I'd sit there, sipping sweet tea, wondering why I always felt like the odd one out. A few years back, Ryan married Chloe, this girl he met at a real estate seminar in Charlotte. They had a huge wedding at Biltmore Estate. Think chandeliers, string quartets, the works. Mom and Dad paid for most of it, dipping into their savings. I stood there in my itchy bridesmaid dress, watching Ryan promise Chloe the world, and thought, good luck with that. Part of me hoped he'd settle down. Part of me knew I'd be cleaning up his mess someday. I don't know why I didn't see it coming. Maybe I was too busy at the bakery, or maybe I just didn't want to admit Ryan was trouble. But looking back, all the signs were there, like crumbs on a counter you don't notice until they're everywhere. 2 years after Ryan's fairy tale wedding at Biltmore, everything went sideways. Chloe filed for divorce, and I wasn't shocked, not really. I'd heard whispers from Mom about Ryan lying to Chloe, saying he had investments when all he had was a maxed-out credit card. Chloe got custody of their daughter, Lily. But Ryan had partial custody too, and suddenly he was a single dad with no job and no place to live. Their apartment in Charlotte got repossessed or something. I never got the full story. Ryan showed up at Mom and Dad's house in Weaverville, a 10-minute drive from Asheville with Lily in tow, looking like a kicked puppy. The house is small, just a 2-bedroom with faded floral wallpaper and a kitchen that always smells like burnt toast. There was no room for Ryan and Lily long-term. Mom and Dad had just retired, all excited about their big plans to see Hawaii, walk on black sand beaches, drink Mai Tais. They'd spent most of their savings on Ryan's wedding, so when he asked for help, they threw their hands up. "We've done enough," Mom said, which was rich coming from her. Then she turned to me, sitting at their scratched oak dining table, and said, "Emma, you're doing well with the bakery. Can you help your brother out, just for a bit?" I should have said no. I should have pointed out that I was barely keeping the bakery afloat, that I hadn't had a day off in months. But Lily was there, 7 years old, clutching a stuffed bunny with one ear missing, her big eyes watching me. She's got this laugh, like wind chimes, and she loves drawing these little sketches of flowers and dogs. I couldn't let her end up in some dingy motel, so I said yes. I started paying for a 1-bedroom apartment for Ryan and Lily in West Asheville, a funky neighborhood with murals on every wall and coffee shops that sell kombucha on tap. The rent was $200 a month, plus utilities, which added another $200. I covered groceries too, cereal for Lily, those organic yogurts she liked. Then there was school stuff, a backpack, notebooks, a calculator for math class. It added up fast. My savings, which I'd been building to add a coffee bar to the bakery, started shrinking. I stopped buying new clothes, started skipping my morning latte. Ryan promised he'd get a job soon, something big in real estate. "I'm close to a deal," he'd say, leaning back in Mom's recliner, one hand scratching the stubble he never shaved. I wanted to believe him. He'd always had this spark, like he was one good idea away from making it. Maybe he was desperate, I thought. Maybe he felt trapped, like he had to prove himself after Chloe left. But there was this other part of me, quieter, that wondered if he was just lazy, if he liked letting me carry the weight. Mom kept saying, "Family sticks together, Emma. Ryan's trying." But he wasn't. He'd get a job selling insurance, quit in a month, tried consulting for some startup, whatever that meant, and that fizzled too. At Sunday dinners, he'd show up with a new iPhone, glossy and black, and I'd stare at it, my stomach twisting. "How'd you afford that?" I asked once, trying to sound casual. He grinned like it was a game. "Don't worry, sis, I've got my ways." Mom beamed at him, like he'd just won a Nobel Prize. I didn't push it. Maybe I should have. Maybe I was scared of what I'd find out. All I knew was Lily needed me, and I couldn't let her down. So I kept writing the checks, telling myself it was temporary, even as I felt my own dreams slipping away. For 3 years, I kept Ryan and Lily afloat, and it felt like I was pouring my life into a bucket with a hole. The bakery was doing okay. Locals loved my blueberry muffins, and tourists would snap pictures of the lavender cupcakes for their Instagram. But every extra dollar went to Ryan's rent, Lily's school supplies, or some random bill he forgot to pay. I stopped dreaming about that coffee bar for the bakery. I stopped buying new shoes, even when my sneakers got holes in the soles. Sunday dinners at Mom and Dad's became this ritual of biting my tongue while Ryan spun stories about his next big break. The dining room, with its faded green curtains and a table wobbly from years of use, felt smaller every week. Mom would pass the mashed potatoes, smiling at Ryan like he was a kid, showing off a good report card. Dad would nod, sipping his beer. I'd sit there, picking at my plate, wondering why I kept saying yes. Ryan wasn't even pretending to try anymore. He'd quit a job at a finance company in Raleigh after 3 months, saying it wasn't his vibe. He started posting on Instagram pictures at Burial Beer Co. in South Slope, wearing a leather jacket I'd never seen, or posing with a $400 pair of Yeezy sneakers. Once he showed up to dinner with a gold chain necklace, the kind that screams, "I'm trying too hard." I asked, "Where's the money coming from, Ryan?" My voice was sharper than I meant, and Lily looked up from her coloring book at the table. Ryan just laughed, said, "Relax, Emma, I'm networking." Mom chimed in, "He's making connections, honey. It's how business works." I wanted to scream. Networking doesn't pay for gold chains, but I didn't push. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired, or maybe I was scared of breaking whatever fragile balance we had. I think Ryan believed he deserved those things, the nice clothes, the nights out. He'd always talk about how he was this close to a real estate deal, how he had to look the part to impress investors. I could see the pressure in his eyes sometimes, this flicker of panic, like he was running from the failure Chloe left him with. But that didn't make it okay. Not when I was eating day-old scones to save money while he sipped craft cocktails. Susan, Mom's older sister, was the only one who seemed to get it. She'd come to the bakery sometimes, sit at the counter with a black coffee, and give me this look, like she could see the weight on my shoulders. Her gray hair was always pulled back in a messy bun, and she'd fidget with her silver bracelet while we talked. "You're doing too much, Emma," she said once, her voice soft but firm. I shrugged it off. "It's for Lily," I said, like that explained everything. Susan didn't push, but her eyes said she knew more than she let on. Then, one night, everything shattered. I was in my apartment above the bakery, a tiny place with slanted floors and a window that rattled in the wind. I was checking my bank account on my laptop, exhausted after a 12-hour shift. A notification from Experian popped up. 3 new credit cards opened in my name, with a total balance of $20,000. My hands went cold. I clicked through, saw charges to Nordstrom, a high-end gym in South Slope, even plane tickets to Miami. The delivery address was Ryan's apartment. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it. I remembered letting him use my laptop last year to apply for jobs. He must have gotten my social security number, my bank details, everything. I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. Was this really Ryan? My little brother who used to steal my Halloween candy but cry if I yelled at him? I wanted to call him, scream, demand answers. But part of me didn't want to know. Part of me was terrified of what it meant for Lily, for our family. I closed the laptop, curled up on my lumpy couch, and just sat there, wondering how I'd let it get this far. That night, after seeing those credit card charges, I didn't sleep. I just sat on my couch, the streetlights outside my apartment window casting shadows on the peeling wallpaper. My mind was a mess. Part of me wanted to drive to Ryan's and bang on his door, but another part kept whispering, "What about Lily?" By morning, I was running on black coffee and rage. I called a lawyer, this guy named Mark, who had an office in a brick building off Biltmore Avenue with a waiting room that smelled like old books. It cost me $500 just to talk to him, which stung, but I needed answers. He looked over the Experian report, the charges, the delivery confirmations to Ryan's apartment. "This is as clear as it gets," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Your brother used your identity. We've got his address, phone number, email on the accounts. You could press charges, but since it's family, maybe start with a demand letter. Give him a chance to pay before it gets ugly." I nodded, but my stomach churned. Press charges? Against Ryan? The kid who used to beg me to read him bedtime stories? But then I thought about the $20,000, years of early mornings at the bakery, gone. I told Mark to draft the letter. That afternoon, I called Ryan from the back room of Sugar Maple Bakery, surrounded by sacks of flour and a mixer that hummed like a tired engine. My hands shook as I dialed. "Hey, sis," he answered, all cheerful like we were planning a barbecue. I cut him off. "I know about the credit cards, Ryan, the $20,000. You have 7 days to pay it back, or I'm going to the police. I've got all the evidence." There was this long silence. Then he started stammering, "Emma, I can explain. I was going to pay you back, I swear." His voice cracked, and for a second I felt this pang, like he was scared, like he knew he'd gone too far. Maybe he'd taken the money out of desperation, thinking he could flip some deal and make it right. But I pushed that thought away. 7 days, I said, and hung up. I didn't hear from him after that. No texts, no calls. Just silence, which was worse, somehow. Mom called the next day, her voice sharp through the phone. "Emma, why are you doing this to your brother? He's struggling." I tried to explain, but she cut me off. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." I snapped. "Nothing? He stole from me, Mom." She went quiet, then said, "We'll talk later," and hung up. I stood there, in the bakery's tiny office with its cluttered desk and a calendar stuck on last month, feeling like I'd just lost something I couldn't name. 7 days later, I checked my accounts. The balances were zero, paid in full. I called Susan, who told me Mom had drained her retirement savings to cover Ryan's debt. Their Hawaii trip, the one they'd been planning for years, was gone. Mom called me that night, screaming so loud I held the phone away from my ear. "Are you happy now, Emma? We've got nothing left, all because you had to make a scene." I was shaking, but I fired back. "You chose to bail him out, Mom. I carried him for 3 years, and he thanked me by stealing my identity." She got real quiet, then said, "You're not the daughter I raised." That hit like a punch. I wanted to cry, to beg her to understand, but I just said, "Maybe I'm better than that," and hung up. I don't know if I meant it. Ryan moved into Mom and Dad's house in Weaverville, rent-free, of course. He kept up his old tricks, going out, posting pictures at breweries, acting like nothing happened. I stopped going to Sunday dinners, told Mom I was busy at the bakery. She'd send texts, passive-aggressive stuff like, "Lily misses you, but I guess work comes first." It hurt, but I couldn't face them. I kept in touch with Lily, though, through her friend's phone. She'd call me, her voice small, telling me about school, her drawings. I sent her sketchbooks through Amazon, told her I loved her. I thought I could just cut Ryan out, keep things clean, but life's never that simple. A few months later, I got an email from Lily's school, Asheville High School, about their art show. Lily, only 7, had a piece in it, a big deal for a kid her age. She'd been talking about it for weeks, how she'd painted something special. I stared at the email, my finger hovering over the "buy tickets" button. Ryan would be there. Mom and Dad, too. It'd be a mess. I almost didn't go. But Susan called me, said, "Emma, that girl needs you. Don't let Ryan ruin this." So I bought 2 tickets, one for me, one for Susan. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. The art show was in the school gym, a big, echoey space with fluorescent lights and folding tables covered in kids' paintings. I slipped in late, stood at the back with Susan. Lily's painting was up front, a picture of me and her outside the bakery with the mountains behind us. She'd written, "Aunt Emma believes in me." My throat got tight. Then I saw her, in a blue dress, her hair in pigtails, smiling so big it hurt to look at. But then Ryan walked over, in some designer jacket that probably cost more than my rent, and Mom was right behind him, whispering something. I wanted to leave, but Lily spotted me, ran over and hugged me so tight I could feel her heartbeat. "You came," she said. Ryan sauntered up, smirking. "Well, look who's here." "Trying to play hero, Emma?" Mom chimed in, loud enough for other parents to hear. "It's nice you found time for Lily, since you're so busy turning your back on family." I froze. People were staring. Lily's smile faded. I should have walked away, kept it civil, but I was done. "You want to talk about family, Ryan?" I said, my voice low but shaking. "How about the $20,000 you stole from me? The credit cards you opened in my name?" The gym went quiet. Ryan's face went pale. Lily looked up, confused. "Daddy, what's she talking about?" she asked. Ryan grabbed her arm, muttered, "We're leaving," and pulled her toward the door. Mom followed, shooting me a look like I'd just burned the house down. Susan squeezed my hand. "They needed to hear it," she said. But as I watched Lily's little figure disappear, I felt like I'd messed up, like I'd hurt her to get at Ryan. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. After the art show, I couldn't shake the image of Lily's confused face, her little voice asking about the credit cards. I'd wanted to hurt Ryan, to make him face what he'd done, but I dragged her into it. I sat in my apartment that night, the hum of the bakery's fridge downstairs filling the silence, and wondered if I'd gone too far. Maybe I should have waited, talked to her privately, but it was done, and I had to live with it. A few days later, Lily called me from her friend's phone. Ryan had taken hers, probably to keep her from me. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. "Aunt Emma, did Daddy really take your money?" she asked. My heart sank. I wanted to lie, to protect her, but she deserved better. "Yeah, honey," I said, my voice barely steady. "He made a big mistake, but that's not your fault, okay?" She was quiet for a long time. then said, "I know, I just wish things were normal again." Ryan moved into Mom and Dad's house in Weaverville permanently, turning their guest room into his personal mess. Clothes everywhere, takeout containers on the floor. Mom complained to Di Susan about it, how he'd stay out late at bars in Asheville, come home smelling like beer, and leave dishes in the sink. Their retirement savings were gone, no Hawaii trip, no nothing, and Ryan acted like it was no big deal. Dad finally put his foot down, told Ryan he had 2 months to get a job or move out. Mom wasn't happy. She still saw Ryan as her sunshine boy, but even she was starting to see the cracks. I didn't talk to them much. Mom's texts had stopped, and I wasn't ready to face her after she'd said I wasn't the daughter she raised. It hurt, but part of me felt free, like I'd been carrying their expectations for too long. I focused on Lily. Susan started bringing her to the bakery on Saturdays, when the place was packed with tourists buying pecan rolls. Lily would sit at the counter, her sketchbook open, drawing the mountains or the funky murals across the street in West Asheville. Susan taught her how to make biscuits, the kind with extra butter, and I'd slip her a cupcake when Ryan wasn't around to complain. I sent her art supplies through Amazon, colored pencils, a watercolor set, and we'd talk on the phone when she could sneak a call. Once, she told me Ryan was barely home, always meeting people for some deal that never happened. "He's sad, I think," she said, and I wondered if he was ashamed, if he ever looked at Lily and felt what he'd cost her. I didn't know. I didn't want to care. The bakery kept me sane. I started saving again, dreaming about that coffee bar, maybe a new sign out front. I even went on a date last month, this guy who owns a bookstore on Haywood Street. It was awkward. I spilled wine on my shirt, but it felt good to try. One afternoon, a package arrived at the bakery. Inside was a card from Lily, with a drawing of us standing outside Sugar Maple, the bakery's blue awning bright against the mountains. She'd written, "Aunt Emma, you're my hero. Thank you for believing in me." I stood there, behind the counter, tears smudging the ink, and for the first time in months, I felt like I'd done something right. Things aren't perfect. Mom and I still don't talk much, and Ryan's still Ryan, chasing dreams that don't exist. But Lily's growing up strong, starting to ask questions, to see her dad for who he is. Susan says she's like me, stubborn but kind. I don't know if our family will ever be what it was. Maybe it shouldn't be. But Lily's my reason to keep going, and I'll be there for her no matter what. I'm learning to love them all from a distance, to build my own life one scone at a time,